guys, welcome back to the show. So, as always, I try to bring as most interesting and best guest I could book for this show, and I have one that is going to be an interesting guest, and I am thrilled to speak to this gentleman. Um, his name is Jeremy Slayden, and you know what? I'm not gonna botch his story. I'm gonna have him actually tell you his story, his side, and we're gonna get into a fun discussion that you guys are actually gonna enjoy. So stay tuned. Jeremy, thank you for coming, man. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the invitation, giving us the time. Uh,
Absolutely, brother. I'm glad to be here.
yeah, I'm glad you're here, man. So I'm gonna open it up with this. I usually straight go to the question, and the question is, who are you? How did you get here? And why are you doing this?
Yeah, man. I got here on your show because you asked me, and I'm glad to be here. But
Yes,
I know you're talking about a little bigger than that.
correct.
When it comes to why am I involved in the freedom movement, why am I involved in the truth movement? It's because I care about those things. I'm an American. I grew up in what I considered to be considered right now a little bit past tense, the land of the free, the home of the brave, because I feel like there's so many institutions out there trying to kill that. They're trying to kill bravery. They're trying to kill courage. They're trying to kill freedom, and they're trying to kill truth. And I finally got sick of it. And just a brief overview. I was a professional baseball player in the Phillies organization for several years after my college career. And I got to meet immigrants from all over the world, and lived all over this country. And I saw, and this was back in 2005 to 2011, I know for a fact how many of those guys appreciated this country, loved this country, and were happy about the opportunity that they were given here. Now that was they had no loss of love for their own home country, but there was a special opportunity here. And so I got to experience that. And then also in the professional world after baseball, I was working for a major roofing manufacturer, selling roofs to the government and to private businesses, but a lot of municipalities, local schools, state government, and even some federal jobs. And I got to hear a lot of inside stories from those guys who, were in facilities and procurement. And they were more the local guys, the blue collar guys that had to make smart decisions, logical decisions. And they were kind of fed up with what was going on in their own government. And by the time 2020 hit, I was getting fed up myself. And then 2021 was like the straw that broke the camel's back. So I left my career. I jumped into this fight, and I've got two little boys, and I know that the country and the world that we leave behind is what they're going to step into. So I want to make it the best place I possibly can.
That is so. I got 4 kids myself, so I know exactly where you're coming from, man.
Yeah.
Um, and I will put his channel's description, his Instagram, his Rumble, everything will be in the description. So please go give him a follow, look at his content, and this is what we need. We need support. We need to support one another, because this is the only way we could actually keep the movement going. We can't. It's enough. For the short amount of time I've lived in this country, which is 30 years, I've seen the worst, and this is by far the worst I have seen. And as you are familiar, that I got into this whole thing because of what was happening in my own district, in my own county. And it all started with the pronoun stuff. Now it's escalating to other things: gender confirming surgeries, butchering children, indoctrination, all this stuff,
Yeah.
now. And it's not just locally, it's becoming a global thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a global agenda. So this is part of the globalism that people they keep denying, right? This is
100%.
absolutely a global agenda that's driven by whatever you want to call it, a higher power, or I don't know. What do you think, man? Like,
A,
what?
lo- a lower power.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think I'm crazy, man? Do you think I'm kind of taking it to a different category, or is it like am I over
No, no,
exaggerating?
not at all. Not at all. I mean, part of the reason I'm here tonight was because you read my little op-ed piece, the promo about, I think there's spiritual roots to all of this. And I see the two crosses behind you. So I assume you're a believer.
I am. I grew up Catholic in Iran, a Muslim country. So
Okay.
uh, we were the minorities of that country. We were the 1%
Yeah.
minority of that country because there were also Jews and Baha'is. So we were part of that minority. So the entire minority group in Iran is 1%.
Yeah.
So a very, very small population. So I grew up as a Catholic. I was also a boy for a long time. And, I still continue. I pray when I can. I go to church when I can. I am I'm not a fanatic. I tell you that. I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. I do believe in praying. I do believe in hell uh, and evil. I do believe in all those stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I believe in heaven. I believe in being good. I believe in being humble, kind, all that because it's part of the teaching. It's part of the growing up.
Yeah. Well, and also you being a Catholic or a Christian in Iran as 1%, you learned about having the courage of your convictions, standing against the mainstream a long
Absolutely.
time ago, right? I mean,
Absolutely,
you're
absolutely, because we're always at war, even with the kids we went to school with. So our our public school, was a mixture of the Christians and the Muslims. So the
yeah.
kids can be really rude or
Oh
ruthless,
yeah.
for that matter, right?
Yep.
So I've experienced it. My family experienced it. My cousins experienced. Some of my cousins who are my age have experienced it. So I'm not making it up. This is not something that you can actually make up. You could always go back and check if this was going on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And but the problem, what I found out in over there, the churches are completely, they function completely different than the churches function in the States.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, on the bad side is they're running churches as businesses, as more running, throwing like government propaganda in it, like some of them, not all, some that I've
You talking about
attended
over there?
here
Oh
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
US.
I know. I agree. Yeah, and that's happening in a lot here at this
Correct.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, over there was more pure because we had the pressure as being the minorities. We had
Hmm.
the pressure of not losing our sight, not losing our faith, and keeping it true, basically, right?
Yeah, well,
Here has
that's a biblical thing, by the way. I mean, you look at the early church from the Bible; they were the minority in Rome. They were
Yeah,
the minority going up against oppression, from all sides. That's why the Apostle Paul talked about. He said, "I'm pressed and squeezed from all sides," and they were putting people in prison for their faith, and that's
absolutely,
still happening around the world today. But that teaches true courage of your convictions, which in America we were told it was beat into our heads from the time we're a Christian nation, we're a Christian nation, until it didn't mean anything anymore.
absolutely. Like honestly, that's what it is, because what you see is all these churches monetizing, constantly monetizing, mega church. These these pastors going on TV and turning to this like huge something that's not what it means. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
It turned into this theatric that you know you discourage people from actually coming to church because it's turned into a circus. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Well, it's another version of the world's message more than it is of Christ's message.
right. Christ's message is be humble, be good, do good, the Ten Commandments, and the house of God is everywhere. It's not just in the church; it's everywhere. God is with you everywhere, not when you just step into church. So if as long as you believe, that's what you are. You believe in the good, you believe in the evil, and you have the option to choose which way you want to go. You have that capability.
Yeah.
And if you start to steer away, hell put signs in front of you to steer you back to where you need to be. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think Jesus was very clear about it. I mean, he said, "You will know those who love me by if they obey my commands." And
exactly.
the thing is, like, then you got to look what were Jesus' commands? What did he teach? And that's where the church is getting it wrong, is they're saying, "Oh, just love everybody, just be tolerant, just love, love, love." It's like, but at the end of the day, Jesus said, "You will know the people that love me by if they obey my commands." And the
Correct.
church has begun to say, "Well, we don't really know what Jesus' commands were. We just know that we're going to do what the government is telling us to say,"
Exactly.
and it's
They they
happening more and more.
they're censoring themselves constantly. That's the
Yeah,
thing. They're
in the name of tolerance and again, like love. There, love by definition is actually exclusive. Like if I love something, that means I can't love everything else. I love something.
Exactly. I totally agree. I totally agree. So we're not going to get off the subject because we're
Yeah,
still on the subject
yeah,
because
yeah.
the subject is ideology and subject is indoctrination. So in your experience, one of your op-eds is the spiritual roots of the gender bending global agenda. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Let the audience know what is it that made you write this, or you know what was it? What triggered you to put this out?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's everywhere in terms of the agenda of gender bending. When by that, what I mean is anything that deviates away from the natural order of that God has given us of man, of woman, of heterosexuality, of the nuclear family, the natural order. And a lot of people hate those words at this point. They're because why? Because Satan, the first temptation he gave to man, he said, "You won't die if you eat of that tree. You will become like God." It goes back to the original sin. So it speaks to our pride. So you'll be like God and you can overthrow God. It's your law, it's your way, it's not his way. And to be, humble, that is all of our temptation is to live out of our own will rather than God's will, where God says, "No, hand me your will," right?
Yeah,
So there is definitely a spiritual root to all that's going on. And Satan, the enemy, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And one of the first things God did was create man and woman, and he created them male and female. I mean, it says that many times in the Old Testament. So Satan is looking to subvert that, to pervert it, where right now you have celebrities, you have education, you have higher education, the government, all of these people at the same time all saying, well, there is no real man and there is no real woman. You can be whatever you want to be and anything in between. And it works on several levels to subvert a nation like ours. Because number one, that whole idea of toxic masculinity and let's get rid of the strong men and anything to do with male strength is considered toxic. Well, that's what every communist regime has wanted to do since we've known about communism is get rid of the strength of the nuclear family. Let's take out the strong men of society because they're the natural bulwark against totalitarian takeovers. So they want to get rid of us, get us to shut up and throw us in the gulags if possible, so that they can centralize their control and take over. So on a political level, that's part of what they want with this globalist agenda.
right.
And then on a spiritual level, obviously that goes back to what I was saying earlier, but anything that can destroy God's order is what they're after. Now, I can go into more specifics about that, but I'll stop there for a minute and catch my breath.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, look, the entire movement that these people are pushing, the whole transgender movement, the whole LGBTQ stuff, the alphabet, crew coming up, changing their flags and pledging allegiance to the flag, and all the nonsense that they are pushing,
Yeah.
right? um this all will come down crashing so hard, and it's their own fault. It's absolutely their own fault, and it's gonna crash. And I tell you why. um have you followed up on what happened in Iran with the Iranian girl being killed by the police?
No, I haven't. Is this
Okay,
recent story or a while back?
this is about a few months ago,
No, I'm sorry,
couple
I
of months
haven't.
ago. uh Iran has a police called morality police. Okay, so what the morality police does is they go and look at women who are not dressed properly,
Yep.
and they will take them into the police station to book them, fine them, whatever. In this case, it was a Kurdish girl in her 20s. She was apprehended, taken, beaten, and she collapsed and died.
Mm,
3 days later, 3 or 4 days later, I believe.
mm.
And that sparked a huge protest in Iran. Huge. In fact, what happened was this is a little bit a side story. A singer from Iran wrote a song about the situation. He won the Grammy Award this year.
Okay.
So um, Middle Eastern countries, women there, right? They're actually fighting for their rights
Yes.
to exist, right? To have some sort of rights instead of keep getting beaten up because of the way they dress, right?
Yeah, that's a real fight for women's rights
That's
over
the
there.
real fight. Like, people in Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Kuwait, almost any Middle Eastern country you want to name, it's the same way, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, because they have to oblige to the Islamic law, they have to dress a certain way and all that stuff. Um, and then I compare it to here, where I hear women saying, "We have no rights. We have, we don't have equal pay. We don't this. We don't this." I was like, "Cool, fine, fight what you want to fight for. I'm cool with it, but be specific of what is it that you don't have. You can vote, you can drive, you could scream, you could yell, you could wear whatever the hell you want, as long as you're not naked. And you could be naked at home, but not on the street, right?" And the whole feminist movement, and here comes the transgender, which the
Yeah.
feminists back up. They are backing the transgender, right?
Yep.
The trans are the men trying to take over their rights.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're cannibalizing each other, but the whole thing is based on a lie. Now I'll let you keep going, but then I've got something to add to that.
Yeah, so basically they allow them to come into their sports, they allow them to come into their workplace, they allow them to come into their um pageants, they allow them to come into anything that they work so hard to achieve on their own to be recognized as a woman, right? They're allowing a second group of people who are now considered as a woman to come in and compete in the same field that they work their butts off to be recognized in.
Oh yeah.
So is that devil's advocate? I don't understand. Like, is that
Well,
balance?
it no, it's all based on a lie anyway. That's why when you asked a great question, you said, "Okay, fine, fight for your right, but what are you fighting for? Get specific." And they don't. They typically get angry and they say, "You don't understand. You're just a man. You're part of the patriarchy." They throw all these big words at you. Here's what it's actually about. Let me read you a quote from Linda Gordon, who is one of the top feminists from the 70s and 80s in higher education. All right, this is what she actually says behind the scenes. I quote, "The nuclear family must be destroyed, and people must find better ways of living together. Whatever its ultimate meaning, the breakup of families now is our revolutionary process. No woman should have to deny herself any opportunities because of her special responsibilities to her children." So forget your children. You shouldn't have to deny your right to go to work and to make. Who cares about your kids? Back to the quote: "Families will be finally destroyed only when we have a revolutionary social and economic organization that permits people's needs for love and security from the government in ways that do not impose divisions of labor or any external roles at all." So the truth is, when you climb the chain of these ideologies, you say, "Okay, I hear what the girl on the street that thinks she's fighting for her rights says, but she's deceived. What does her professor say? And what books are her professors reading? And where's this coming from?" Ultimately, it's about the destruction of the family. And this is an old communist tactic. It's been around for a long time, but it's way older than communism. This is a satanic plan to disrupt good nations, to take away freedom, to emasculate men, and to actually take away women's freedom, which is what you're talking about. I mean, even my alma mater, Georgia Tech, they were the ones that hosted that male swimmer in the female NCAA swimming championships.
Yep.
So it's everywhere, and we've got to start calling it out for what it is. This is a satanic attack on everything that is good.
Yeah, and you know what it is, man? It's society itself. um, and people want some sort of confirmation. People are afraid to be called names. Okay, uh, if you don't agree with the concept of a transgender uh, woman or man, whatever, uh, if you don't agree with them to compete in the same sport that you are competing in, and you speak up, you're a transphobe, you're a you're xenophobe, whatever name they want to call you at this point. I
Yeah.
don't even know anymore, right? Because there's so many different terms now. There's so many different curse words coming out of these people's mouth. It's God knows
Yeah.
what they're thinking. So they don't want to fall under that category. They have lost the strength to say, you know what, call me whatever you want. It still doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
It still
Yeah.
doesn't make it right. You know, you could scream your lung off, turn purple if all I care. It still doesn't make it right.
Yeah, and
Um,
my question to men especially, but anybody that's gonna that knows the truth in their heart, but especially men because they've been especially cowardly in this country. I would say, why are you worried about what people who can't even define what a woman is? Why are you worried about what name they call you? Like, let's stop paying any attention to that crowd. I don't care how big the crowd is. Like, stop caring, because you know how you push back and how you win this fight? Everybody starts saying out loud what they really think, and all that goes away. It's only when we're isolated and we're like the only one that's willing to say it that yeah, it feels kind of bad because now we get the backlash of culture. But if everybody like you and me that feels this way but has been silent begins to speak up, it's kind of like when the police, they can arrest two or three people, they
yeah,
can't arrest 10,000 people,
that I mean that's the truth. That's the truth. It's just like when I went in front of the school board, and I said, if you guys push this crap, I'm gonna make you hate your life. I'm gonna make you, like I told him, I'm gonna make you call my sons kings and call
Oh,
my
yeah, I
daughter
remember
queen,
that.
right? And I'm gonna make you call me master.
Yeah, you
Because
checkmated him, man.
I mean, I could play the same stupid game. It's a game.
It
For
is so,
God's sake,
yeah.
it's a goddamn game. And what's happened, so this is another thing I was going to talk to you about. Masculinity in the United States.
Yeah.
Report came out, military is falling below its quota for recruitments.
Oh yeah.
And they are dropping their standards to have more people uh, in the military to actually pass,
Yeah.
right? And my friend and I, we have a running joke. He has a big lot and he has a lot of trees, and we're like, I once in a while I just tell him, I'm like, hey man, I'm lacking testosterone. I'm gonna come and chop some wood.
Yeah. Love it.
So we joke around like that, but man, the men who I was growing up with, my generation and the people who were around me, do day and night difference. Day and night difference. And when I look at the people who are my age and the way they are, and like how, I mean, I don't want to say soft, because we're all softies in some way. We still have emotions. It's not like we don't have emotions. It's the way of thinking, like saying, oh, that's way too toxic, or the stupid words again, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, like that it's turning into a clown show all over the place,
Yeah. Well,
you know
you got to realize, like, those words like toxic, that they actually used to have real meaning, but they're being used to lie. Like, they would call you and me toxic for saying what we're saying. And all we're saying is true things. That's it.
yeah,
And I would go so far to say, yeah, yeah. You mentioned the word soft and said, we have emotions. Your emotions can drive you to be courageous too.
absolutely,
So I think people should feel emotional. Like right now, when you talk about these things, it makes me a little bit angry. That's not a bad thing. It's a
no,
righteous anger. It's an anger that says, no, I'm going to stand for truth. That doesn't mean that I don't go treat my wife well or go love my kids. I'm going to go do
sure,
that.
sure,
So
no, absolutely,
yeah, it's kind of like, I would rather, you don't want to be like a softie that can't stand up for yourself. And you don't want to be like rigid and hard, but you want to be strong, like a muscle,
yeah,
where you can use your strength as needed.
no, I totally agree, man. I mean, it's I have so I grew up in LA. Most of my teenage life I was in LA. until I
Hmm.
was until late 20s, right? 15 years I lived there. Uh, and you sort of become part of your surrounding, people who you hang out with, because you don't really have a real clear agenda what as far as career and whatever. So until the age of 20, I want to say 20 or 21, I didn't give a damn about anything. Right? I was 21 years old anyways. I was a 20 stupid kid. I didn't go to college. I hated school. I wasn't the type to study.
Right.
But I hustled. I worked. I created a network for myself. I knew a bunch of people. Um, and one thing I always told myself, that this, I always kept telling myself, this is a land of opportunities. This is a land of opportunities. Take advantage of the opportunity that comes in front of you. And up until today, I I tell people I'm an opportunist. I go where the opportunity is, or I'll chase the opportunity. I'll make it come to me,
Yeah.
because because the mindset I put myself in, and mainly because how I grew up, because I kept looking at my dad. My dad still works. He's 77 years old. He's still working.
Good for him.
He doesn't want to quit. He's like, if I quit, I'll die. This is his exact thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's been working for forever. For I can't even remember. I think he's been working since 18. So he's been at it for 60 years
Yep.
nonstop, right? And I tend to be a little bit more aggressive with my decisions. Um, but what after I had kids, my mentality completely changed. After my first was born, I completely had a shift of mentality, because now you have responsibilities. Now
Yep.
you have to, you're gonna grow this human being into an adulthood, that it needs to be able to maintain itself and learn how to survive outside of this safe area that I'm, raising the child.
Sure.
So that, that hit me. It wasn't like, it didn't take me like 3 years to realize it. It hit me right away. So, and a lot of my friends said, he's like, hey dude, as soon as you moved to Virginia, you changed. You're not the same guy. I was like, of course I changed, because I left an environment which I was in, and I did not know really what was happening outside of that environment. I didn't care enough.
Yeah.
Um, and slowly, things change, and I never in my entire life would have thought to come to this level of change, where now men are competing in the same sport as women.
Yeah.
We always thought that's the weakest point of a man.
Yeah. I never
We
thought
always
about
like,
it at all.
it's like you're fighting a girl, bro. You should not be getting beaten up.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
always the thing. Like, hey, dude, you got beaten up by a girl. Like, that guy would have just committed suicide.
Yeah, I mean, I've never thought about it in those terms. I mean, I think back to when I was 10 years old, right? Playing, and
Yeah,
I was a baseball player even then. If one of the boys on the team would have, gone to his parents and said, "Hey, I can't really compete with the boys. I want to go play in the girls' league," and the
yeah,
parents would have taken that boy to go play in the girls' league, it would have been seen as like the weakest move like you could possibly ever do. And that's what grown men are doing now, and they're being applauded as brave.
exactly. It all, and you know what it started with? Participation trophies.
Yes, you're right.
They're taking all challenges. They're taking everything that will actually challenge somebody, boys and girls, not just boys. They're taking all that away. Now they're everything. Oh, it's okay. At least you tried.
Yep.
At least you tried. Well, that's not enough. That's not going to get you through life. You just tried does not get you through life.
That's
And
right.
I think this is where most women are having the issue, is because they grew up with that mentality. They are being taught that mentality. Because you tried and you didn't make it, that's okay,
Yeah.
right? So we're here to support you emotionally. We
Yeah,
need to support
it's an
you.
emotionally driven society rather than a logically driven society.
Right. And who's on the top at this point? Those are the sharks. Those are the guys who don't care what other people think,
Yeah.
right? Those are the guys, and most of them don't have a college education. If you look at all the wealthy people on this planet, majority of them don't have college education.
True.
Majority of them did not come from money. Majority, right? Jeff Bezos, he didn't come from money. Elon Musk didn't come from money, right? And Elon Musk is an African.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a true African American. And look at him, he's the richest guy in the world. Bill Gates, he didn't come from money. They
Well,
all started.
he actually did, just so you know.
Well, he started. Let's say he had what, $10,000 at the time, or 20,000, or something
No,
like that.
that's the mainstream story, but I get your point
But
though. Most people that have to scratch and claw themselves, they get it done because they've had to work for it.
absolutely, do you know a guy named Patrick Bet David?
Sounds familiar.
He's the guy that does valuetainment. He interviewed Roland Martin the other
Okay.
day. Um, I worked with him probably like 20 years ago or so, like for a short amount of time. He's also an immigrant from Iran. This guy, he's a millionaire now.
Yeah.
He's up there because why? He's a he's an intelligent guy. He's smart, but he's a shark,
Yeah.
right? He's very on point. He's quick. He knows what needs to be done, and they're taking all those out of uprising, like bringing up kids, raising children, be more sensitive,
Yeah.
right? Hurt feeling is now considered abuse.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're wanting, when you look at who's really, as far as I talked about spiritual, the spiritual, what do you call it? Roots of all of this. But when you actually look at like the people now that are wanting to do this to not only America, but all of humanity, because this is a global problem.
Yeah,
Those guys at the very top, most of them actually did come from wealth or some kind of royal family or secret society. There's a lot of that. Okay.
yeah,
And what they're trying to do now is make it so that countries like America, where you can actually work really hard, use your intellect, and change your status, your class status, even from being, I mean, my family was that way. We were very poor to being moderately wealthy, moderately, right?
yeah,
Through a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears from my dad and mom. But they want to make that almost impossible by saying, if you don't play by our rules, have you ever heard of the ESG scores?
yes,
Yeah, that's coming straight out of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. And it's basically like, okay, if you're going to be a company and you get very big at all, you've got to play by these rules in terms of the LGBTQ stuff, the social justice stuff, all of these different things. And they wrap it up in language that like about the environment that a lot of times sounds like it would be okay.
yeah,
But the truth is like a lot of it is a lie. And it's all about this godless agenda to make everybody, because they try to say, well, don't put your religion on other people. Don't do that. They have a religion. They're trying to put that on the
sure,
whole world. That's what they're doing.
absolutely. No,
And they're
totally
making it
agree.
so that strong men like you and your father and the guys you mentioned, that they actually cannot succeed unless they take that pill and they start to believe in all those same things. So, I mean, we have a limited window of time to push back on this. And I mean, I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing and many, many others, because we have to stand up now.
And look, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I
All right.
can.
Why are you worried about being nice, dude? You're on your own show.
As um the problem here is this, man. The I just quit my job and I got another job,
Okay.
and I was doing an exit interview with my previous company, and they asked me, "It's like, hey, what can we do better?" And my immediate response, I didn't even hesitate. I was like, "Stop using the words inclusion, diversity, and equity in your
Yeah.
emails. Stop." And I saw the lady's face. She's like she went into a shock. She was speechless. She's, oh, could you clarify that a little bit more? I was like, yeah, stop using them. I mean, how much more clear do you want? I said, stop using buzzwords. I said, you're a corporation. Act like one. Stop using these stupid buzzwords that 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 you're gonna get something out of it. Nothing comes out of these stuff. In fact, you're making it even unprofessional for people to work for this company. I don't want to be part of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, we hear it all day, all night, coming from the media, coming from social media, coming from left and right, people, blah, 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 schools, all this. You know, I was like, if I have to ask you a question, what is equity, equality, and diversity? Please explain to me what that is, because I myself, living in this country for the past 30 years, I have not experienced experienced this categories of things you guys are throwing at people's faces. Because, and I tell you why. I said, and I told her, I said, look, I work at a very I worked at a bank for a while, which was at a very rich area, Pacific Palisades in California, where all the rich people live. Movie stars will come. Like I had a chance to see a bunch of uh, uh, known individuals,
Yep. Yep.
and it was me and this black girl who I worked with, right? And customers will come. He's like, "Oh, can you tell that colored girl to come in?" I was like, "Colored?" I was like, "Could you be more like?" I would just like fuck with them now. Like I'm at this point. I was like, "Colored?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, the colored." I was like, "You talking about that black girl over there,
Yeah.
Melanie?" So I was like, "Melanie, come here." Like like I will call her. Like her and I were good friends.
Yeah.
You know, and who did not like me was most of the white clients that I had. Out of all of them, only one guy did not like me, right? So
You
he
saying
would
out of all the white clients you
out
had?
of all the white clients, only
Yeah.
one guy didn't like me. And he would skip me to go to somebody else. And I got promoted like 7 times in a bank, so I was a teller for a very short amount of time. So I was sitting at a desk. He would come to my desk, just pick up my phone and dial. I was like, "You can't do." He's like, "Oh, I'm a customer." So as soon as he's talking, I'll just hang up the phone on him. I was like, I turned into that guy that, no, you're not gonna do this, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Um, and when I was leaving, I don't know what racism or racist or anything like that was, right? To me, that was prejudice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
they're creating it by talking about it all the time.
Exactly. Being racist and prejudice are two different categories. And everyone's prejudiced, man. Everyone on earth is prejudiced. I don't care how you say it, I don't care who you say it to. Prejudice exists in everyone. And
How
I tell
how,
you,
how are those two things different? Because I've never heard this before.
okay, I'll tell you how it's different.
Yeah.
Prejudice is when you don't like a category of individuals, right? Let's say left versus right, Democrat versus Republican. Republicans are more prejudiced towards the Democrats. They don't really like them, they don't want to hang out with them, right? Black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter, because now you're grouping everybody into one. Racist is white skin, don't like any other skin. That's what the race
Dude,
is.
we always get that. Flip it around one time. What about
No,
black
no,
people
no.
don't
But
like my
that's what racism now is. That's what racism now is.
That's the only thing it's allowed to be.
Racism used to be about ethnicity.
Yeah.
Okay, racism used to be about ethnicity. When Germans were going against Jews, that was pure racism because skin color wasn't a thing. It was your religion, who you were and who you were and where you came from. That was a true racism style, right? That was a true definition of racism. That has gone away now. Now it's all about skin color. Now it's all about ancestors. Now it's all about where you come from and how dark is your skin. Because I am considered as a white man, even though I don't have any Irish, I don't have any European in me. I'm Middle Eastern. We're Phoenician. We're
Yeah.
technically we're like green skin, right? Um, but this is what they do is they change terminologies, they change words, they make a throw up of words,
Yeah.
and people want to stay away from these stuff. People don't want to be categorized. Uh, oh, you didn't like that? You're a racist.
Yeah,
Just
and
don't
well,
shut that.
it only goes one way as well. I mean, and it actually does have to do with ideology. So me and you, they might say you're a racist. They might say I'm a racist because they don't like the way that we look at the world. They don't
Exactly.
like the way we look at the world. But you know, and even if like Candace Owens or a black commentator was on the show with you talking about conservative ideology or whatever, they would say that she's a racist. I mean, they would say that she's like
Yeah,
carrying water for white supremacy. So
exactly.
they do know that there's an ideology that they hate, and they've labeled that racism.
Correct. Correct. And
It's
that's not,
insane.
I mean, look, if you go to any college campus now, right now, you will see the Koreans hanging out with Koreans. You're going to see the Indians hanging out with the Indians. You're going to see most of the groups of people you see hanging out with each other, they're within their own either race or within their own ethnicity.
Yeah,
That's just how it is. It's not that they don't like anybody else. That's just how human nature is. They like to hang out with their own people of background. Then you have a small group of like very mixed people.
yeah.
So you,
But I think that's worse today though because of all people talking about race constantly.
sure,
Like you and me, I feel like we would hang out just fine. There'd be no issues.
I don't have any problem with anybody, man. I hang out with anybody. I've worked with people who are super liberal, like unbelievable liberal. But man, I've had some decent conversation with these people. No fighting, no name calling, very professional, very respectful, right?
Yeah,
Very respectful. We talk, we disagree, we laugh, we disagree more, we laugh some more, then we disagree even more, right?
yeah,
And but at the end of the day, I never left that uh that conversation with hate or
yeah,
with anger. And
yeah,
this is the key. With I'm going to go back to the transgender thing because this is the topic, but that's they want they want to have this division created through all these ideologies,
yeah.
right? um through all this global agenda. The more you create a division, the weaker the society becomes,
That's
because
right. Yeah,
eventually a society will break down when two groups will start fighting each other. Civil war, basically, right?
yeah,
You see all these countries in the Middle East going down in civil war. They all have civil wars.
yeah,
The African countries full of civil wars. They're in destruction mode, right? They don't have an economy. There's fraud going all over the place. Everyone's stealing money.
yeah,
Nobody gives a damn anymore. So when you create instability in a country, especially United States, this is a big country. We are huge. We have a huge economy. We are a service country. We are made out of people who are just geniuses, man. Like I don't know how their mind works. We create the most amazing stuff. But what's the best way to destroy it?
yeah. Fragment all the people into these little groups and get them to fight. There's no doubt about that.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Do you think transgenderism is not one of those fragments?
It is the problem because I hear you loud and clear when you're talking about I can get along with people who are on the far left and but you also said that they were able to have a respectful conversation with you, right?
Correct.
So that's one thing, and I remember more of that about 10 years ago.
Yes.
These
And
days,
this was exactly 10 years ago.
yeah, okay. So these days, their ideology has become so radical that not only will they call me names before they'll actually have a conversation with me, they also want to indoctrinate my kids. So there is a real there is a fight there, and
Absolutely.
the best thing for me to do is keep my kids away from them and to just not engage. Now, if I'm at a workplace where I'm with somebody like that and we have a conversation, fine, I'll have it. But we're kind of almost beyond that place where the hard left is wanting to just discuss these things. I think they're more
Yeah.
like, no, you bow down and capitulate.
Yeah.
And
No,
I'm not gonna do that.
No, I totally agree, man. I mean, I'm in the same boat, like my wife and I went back and forth about homeschooling, about putting the kids in private school, but private schools are full. Like I can't even put my kids in private school because they're just full. There is no
Too
more,
full. Yeah.
and the nearest one we have to take them is like almost 35 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
What what
it's
what people got to realize, Dimmies, is that like the people that are doing this is not just like the Biden administration. It's not just an American political party.
all right.
It goes all the way to the top. And what do you know about Agenda 2030?
No.
Agenda 2030 it's a shared agenda between the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. Okay.
Hmm.
It's big on the LGBTQ stuff, all that. But one of their stated goals is for the United States by 2030 to no longer be a world superpower. And Joe Biden is a puppet of the World Economic Forum. He goes there every year. Klaus Schwab says he's one of the hardest workers in the world. Like, I think he's, a senile old man at this point,
Oh
but he's
yeah.
basically a puppet of that group. Well, if he loves what that group is saying, and that group's saying we're going to take down the United States as a world power, you can see he's trying to do it. That's what that administration is trying to do.
Yeah.
So
No,
we've
no, no.
we've got to understand the structure of things goes pretty high. We got to know what we're dealing with.
It's look, it's very very scary to see how I call these people anti-American.
They are.
They've been anti-American for the longest time,
Yeah.
and I consider myself an American because I lived here most of my life, and I like this place. I like this place. I enjoy this place. I I have I've done enough to keep my spot, and I don't want to get into details to be honest. But I've done my part to a certain point to stay here, and I it pisses me off the destruction that's happening here in our society. And what mostly pisses me off in indoctrination of children. and
Yep.
and I give you a good example. I tell this to everybody. I say I grew up in a world of propaganda as a child. Iran was all about propaganda, and they are the master of how to delivering those propaganda. And they will use music, they will use art, they will use commercials, they will use video clips, whatever it takes to entice an individual, put fear in people's eyes and hearts. Once you put fear in people's eyes and hearts, you have full control of those people without
Yeah.
any weapons,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
As long as you put fear in them, COVID was a perfect example,
Perfect example.
right? Um, and now the fear is because with this new society, it's all about status, it's all about name, it's all about who you are. Um, and if you are known, oh, this guy is a racist, this guy is a racist, this guy is a racist, like that, if that gets carried around to like 20, 30 people that and those people stop talking to you, you're like, oh crap, they think I'm racist.
You start changing your behavior.
Yeah, you start changing your behavior because you want to still be part of that group.
Yeah.
But that's how destruction is, right? And
Yeah.
and the way it starts, our media is the same way. The messaging in our schools is starting to become the same way. Um, Workplace becoming the same way. And I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Well, I started working in a new office, and I walk in and I was like, racism stops with me. It was on one of the office doors. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, please, like, for God's sake, like enough. Like,
Yeah.
please, just enough. And I say this to everybody. I said, look, I am an immigrant. I came here not speaking English. What's the difference between an individual who was born and grew up here and me coming here at age 13? A US born 13-year-old and an Iranian 13-year-old. What's the difference? The difference is I don't speak English. This guy speaks English.
Hmm.
I have to work extra hard to learn English and understand what I'm studying, what I'm going to be learning. You already know English. You should be 10 steps ahead of me by now in everything.
Yeah.
I need to catch up to you, right? So I put extra work to learn a language and amongst other things like math, history, all that stuff. To me, history didn't make sense because my English was terrible when
Yeah.
I was in high school. Right? I
Right.
didn't know what I was learning. I had no idea. But I had to push myself to understand it. So read, read, read. Math was the only easy course for me because math is a universal language. I was okay in math, but when it came down to history, literature, I sucked, right? But then I legit surpassed so many guys who were born here, raised here, and went to school with. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. And I'm not bragging about myself. I'm just, this is the reality. Because if you look at the United States reality, a lot of foreigners, super, they exceed in everything.
Yeah, they had to work harder for it, and they developed those habits at an earlier age. Whereas here, you're comfortable; things were handed to you, for especially our age, and yeah, guys like you would surpass.
They work harder, they're more hungry.
There you go. That's a good word.
They're
Yeah,
more hungry. I still am hungry. I'm not like, I've had this conversation with my wife, and you know, you need to spend more time, you need to do this. I'm like, I understand. I am at fault of not spending enough time. But I still need to make it to where I need to be, that I'm comfortable enough
yeah,
where I don't want to be like my dad working at 75 years old.
yeah,
I want to be in a place where my kids see me busting my ass to provide for them. I need to be their example. Like my
hmm,
dad was my example.
yeah,
They need to see that. They need to see me working, hustling, hurting, whatever it is. Even falling, even at my lowest point, they need to see the lowest point, because if you don't see the lowest point, you'll never see the high point.
yeah. That's right. That's
You know
right.
what I
That's
mean?
good.
This is
Yeah,
why I hate participation trophies. This is why e- I hate equity. This is the number one reason I hate equity, is because it prevents you from failing
and succeeding.
and succeeding.
Yeah,
You
they
need
don't.
to fail. You absolutely, and I tell this to everybody. You have to fail to actually taste it, to know what you lost, so you'll never do it again.
100%.
You know what I mean?
No, I do, I do, and I hate to do this. I do have to run. I hate to jump off the show. Um,
No problem, man. Hey,
my
thank you
my wife
so
will be
much.
upset with me if I don't cut it off.
No, 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 man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we could talk for hours, man,
Yeah,
but I'll
absolutely.
definitely would love to have you back on the show. We'll definitely connect again, and talk about more and more stuff. So guys, please subscribe to his channel. I'll put the links down below. Please go to realimmigrantcorner.com, sign up to the mailing list, and peace out.